Since 2015, Authentic Parenting has been pioneering the conversation about trauma-informed parenting. We've been offering this podcast freely as a trusted resource for parents everywhere. We don't work with sponsors or advertisers. We rely on listener support. If you would like to show your appreciation, love, and gratitude, please consider making a donation. Your contribution helps us continue our mission, bringing you expert insights and valuable content every week. Visit authenticparenting.com/support to see suggested donation amounts or join us on Patreon at patreon.com/authenticparenting. Every contribution truly makes a difference. Thank you for your listenership and generosity. I am Anna Seawold, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about growing ourselves while raising our children. I'm a psychologist, educator, and parent coach. And on this podcast, I explore how you can connect to your authentic self, practice radical self-care, and raise emotionally healthy children. Let's break the cycle of generational trauma for a more peaceful, kind, and compassionate world. I am joined today by my dear friend and colleague and occasional co-host here on the show, Dr. Laura Froyen. Many of you know Laura well. We've been doing episodes together for years now. It's actually been a while since we last recorded one, so I am really happy to have her back. Today's episode is a little different. We came across a Facebook post from a desperate mother in a local parenting group who shared anonymously asking for advice. We read her post and some of the comments. They were 57. And they all had a similar suggestion. And then we reflect on what it all says about the state of parenting today, the kind of advice parents get from strangers online, and how we might respond if this mom came to us for professional help. The post is about a teenage daughter who, as the mom described, is out of control, lying, hitting, running away. We unpack what might actually be going on beneath that behavior, talk about the difference between dysregulation and being out of control, and explore the role of curiosity when parenting gets hard. We also talk about how in many ways we've got it upside down here in the United States. When our kids are little, we tend to give them a lot of freedom and control and autonomy and choices. And then when they become teenagers, we suddenly want to tighten the reins, whereas in reality, it needs to be the opposite. Otherwise, as you'll hear, it backfires, this kind of approach. It's a really rich conversation full of powerful insights about holding your authority and leadership as a parent while still setting kind and firm limits. Ultimately, it's about understanding our kids rather than reacting punitively, even when that feels like the easiest path. Family relationships are complex. And while seeking help in online spaces is understandable, it can sometimes do more harm than good. And speaking of seeking support online, did you know that I have a private Facebook group called the Authentic Parenting Community? And since March of 2020, when the pandemic happened, I offer free parent support calls bi-monthly. You're welcome to join my newsletter or join the Authentic Parenting Facebook group to stay up to date. And if you need parenting support, you're very welcome to join one of our calls. And now, please enjoy and thank you for listening. let's look through the comments first because I thought the comment section was incredibly interesting. Again, look into this academy in Utah. So they want to send this child away. But I like this one. This is funny. Firstly, gentle parenting does not work. Exclamation points. Second, you're not, and I repeat, you're not your child's friend. Well, I agree with that, right? Like we're the parent, we're not the friend, but it doesn't mean you have to be this harsh disciplinarian entity. You can be kind and friendly and
Yeah, it's interesting. That phrase, like, I'm your mom, not your friend. My mom used to say that to me when I was a teenager.
yeah.
And even now, as a parent, I find that really interesting because my mom is one of my best friends. So there is a point when you become an adult where that does shift, when you become more peer-like. But there's also this other piece that, like, if I ever said that to my youngest kid, she would be heartbroken. She thinks we're really good friends. And she understands that I have a level of authority and leadership in our home that is different than her peer friends. But she feels close with me, safe and understood by me. We like to hang out and spend time together. And in her mind, that's what you do with your friends, you know? So I think that there's a difference between having a close, connected relationship and being friendly with your kids versus trying to be their friend, trying not to make them mad, trying to get them to like you, you know, and that's different. I think that's what people mean when they say you're not her friend. They mean you don't have to like me all the time. They mean I'm not going to bend over backwards to get you to like me versus the idea that we can be friendly and have fun together and hang out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can still have that sense of leadership within the home.
You know what I was curious to see how many people would have a compassionate response. I see traces of somewhat like empathy in some of the comments, like this one says, gentle parenting doesn't work. You're the parent, blah, blah, blah. Lastly, she says, I feel bad for you. If your insurance allows, check our such and such St. Clair's. I think it's in Morris County. Whatever you need to do before your child turns 18. Wishing you all the best. You know, at least, you know, there is some care, Facebook care, whatever that means. Again, another program suggestion. Like there's so many program suggestions. And what's interesting to me is no one says seek parenting support for yourself
It is
or go to
interesting.
therapy together with your daughter. There's nothing of like, let's build something between the two of you, that something is broken, or maybe you need to learn some new skills or some new strategies. Maybe you need a space to feel supported. It doesn't feel like people have that kind of advice, and people have
It's fix the child.
it's fix the child, center away, center away, center away. And that's what's stunning to me, reading all those responses. Isn't that interesting how the culture hasn't caught up with? And another woman says, I'm going through it with my 12-year-old. I'm going to be homeschooling her again. Clearly, it has happened again. I believe there is no hope for certain kids being around peers. No phone, no TV, no school until she's back on track. That's totally harsh, I think. That's how I am handling it. Just went through it with my 16-year-old, got her on track, then the younger one fell off the rails. So I feel like with this control parenting, let's call it like control parenting, where you take away everything, where you are erratic and, you know, you throw consequences like that. Give me your phone, give me all your privileges, you're grounded. Yes, of course, you're going to get short-term compliance because the child has nothing else to do. But then it's like, how effective is that?
And then what does it do for the relationship?
It erodes your trust. It erodes your connection. Your kid is going to hate you. Yes, maybe temporarily they quote unquote behave, but it doesn't improve. It didn't teach them how to mindfully engage with TV or phone or whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. I mean, I watched this Netflix documentary on some of the places where kids get sent away to military style boarding schools. I would be very cautious about sending my child away somewhere. If you're at the point where you're feeling like you have no other options, have we tried family therapy? How many meetings with the school counselor have we had? Are we connected to the parents of her friend group? There are a lot of steps between sending away. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to chime in here and say. But obviously, I'm too late to the game. It's like 57 comments later. It's kind of what am I going to contribute? And having read most of the people's comments, mine is going to get lost and I'm going to get hate mail. And it's not my place and it's anonymous. I don't want to engage with anonymous people and it's not my place. Like, I don't want to engage in Facebook drama, but I feel badly for this parent for that reason that there could be resources and support out there that she can utilize that she's maybe not seeing at the moment because she's suffering. And all those people are sort of misguiding her. Maybe this is all good advice, but maybe it doesn't apply to this moment. And that's what social media does, right? Like, we don't know the person.
We
There's
don't
no
know the
indi-
big
we
picture.
don't know the big picture. Yeah. But how desperate she must be to reach out through this Facebook group anonymously. And a lot of the responses are anonymous too.
Hmm.
Like this one says, your daughter sounds like me when I was 16, except stealing or hitting my parents. I was awful. I was sent away to such and such psychiatric center, and it was there where I was diagnosed with a couple of things.
She says, I know that had I not gone to an inpatient facility, I would not be where I am today. And so, like, there's something to be said for getting your child the help that they need if they're really struggling. But it can't be from a place of, my kid's the problem, send it away to get them fixed. There has to be more systemic change, right?
If you stay the same and your child went away and they got some kind of treatment and help and they came to the same environment, then that's like, how effective is that? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another one says, talk to the guidance department at school. I guess they heard you. If they have any ideas. I know there used to be a place in such and such town that ran day programs, but I'm not sure if the name of the program. So again, residential program recommendations. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I'm assuming this child already feels that military attitude at home. They don't need more of that. Again, residential treatment programs for these type of behaviors, but they are extremely expensive. Another one says, I have been there minus the running away and violence. She needs more help than you can provide. I agree with that. I learned a long time ago that I can do everything right, but it may not be the solution. I guess as a parent. Yeah, that's why you need support and help. Again, they are offering emergency numbers here to call.
a voice of reason too. I do not recommend calling the police unless you are scared for your safety, hers, or the rest of the family. I so agree with that. So much can go wrong.
Some people recommend calling the police. And yeah, I mean, that is not a solution.
Part of what I'm thinking about too, that maybe, for folks who are listening who have younger kids is, okay, so what can we do now so that we don't get to this place? Because this didn't happen overnight, most likely, right? So this parent didn't get to this place overnight. Finally, somebody said, have you tried family therapy? But like, what are the things that can let us know that stuff is going on that we need to take a look at?
Oh, let's read this one. Ooh, I agree with getting the police involved. If she's hitting you and your children, like as if she's not one of the children, you need to have her see some consequences, especially being 16. You also need to stop, quote unquote, gentle parenting and being her friend. Again, people misunderstand what gentle parenting is, number one.
Yes.
And that term gentle rubs them the wrong way, right? Because gentle parenting principles, we've talked about this in our episode about the harms of gentle parenting. We did talk about that there are even harms to gentle parenting, like the emotional exhaustion for the parent. And we mentioned several things. I'll link that.
Even just the misunderstanding of what it is.
So she needs to fear you oh my goodness, this may be an unpopular opinion, but everything she has is a privilege. She's disrespecting you and the house, entertainment, privileges, and privacy get taken away. I am literally taking my kid's door off the hinges because he wasn't acting right. You need to show who is the boss. And if she doesn't like it, there is the door
There's the
girlfriend.
door, girlfriend.
There is the door
My
girlfriend. Oh
gosh.
my gosh. I have two older ones and I went through a ton of shit with inpatient sets, therapeutic schools. Oh my gosh. It takes a village. And I like how she ends it with heart emoji. It takes a village. Good luck. And seven people liked this. It's it. Oh gosh. Like so much has to be we do all this conscious parenting, mindful parenting, authentic parenting, balanced parenting. We do all this work. And it seems like many people embrace quote unquote gentle parenting in the correct way, at least maybe. But still, there is a lot of work to be done to educate parents, to help them
There's another way, I guess. Yeah. I just,
that there is another way. You don't have to go, as you say on your podcast, to the extremes, like taking the door off the hinges, calling the police. That's extreme. And I can say so much about how I feel like if your child is going to be scared of you, that's not a good strategy. That is the worst thing ever. No child should fear their parent, period.
an expiration date on that. On most of those tactics, they work until they don't, you know. I mean, it's just like with littler kids, like timeouts and behavior charts are taking away things, you know, using unrelated consequences. All of those things work until they don't, right? Until the kid decides, I don't care about this anymore. And when we're talking about older kids, they start to just not care about the relationship. I let it go in one ear and out the other. I don't listen to a thing that they say. I don't care about maintaining the relationship. And so when you are trying to parent from a place of power and control, when that is your only strategy, there will come a point where you have none left because you've given it to them in a sense. Because if you can't find the right carrot to dangle or the right thing to take away, then you have nothing left. And it erodes the relationship over time. And I'm not saying you don't have to have boundaries and limits and consequences, but they can't be your only strategy. Your only strategy cannot be power and control.
It's like bullying, it's violence over your child.
The power over as opposed to power with them.
And that's not going to lead anywhere good. Like, look at the country we live in, look at the wars in the world, look at the level of violence against humans, children, women to this day. And the roots of the violence emerge from the little small families that we all have. And if you are like one of my podcast guests, I love her quote, Pam Leo, so much. She said, we will end bullying in the world when we stop bullying children.
At home. Yeah.
And the violence in the world, you see, it's, parenting can make a big difference. And it doesn't, yeah, your child doesn't have to fear you for you to be an effective parent. There are ways. That's why work with us, work with other people.
So, Anna, I think the big question for me is folks would be hearing us say, like, there's other ways of doing this, or you can't have control or power over be your only tool as a parent. So in a situation like this, where this parent is hearing, you've got to really ratchet up the control, take everything away, send them away, it can maybe sound like we're saying, well, no, don't do those things. And it maybe sounds like we're saying, I can imagine someone and say, well, then what do I do? So then what do I actually do? If I'm not going to do those things that are the go-to, what am I actually going to do in this circumstance? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I think we're done with the comment section because you look again to conclude the comment section so that we can go and express what we would recommend or how we would work with this parent. I think that's the most useful thing to do here instead of wasting people's times. Again, people say send away boot camp is recommended, links to outpatient places and similar things, correct?
Yes.
And shall
I think I did see one recommendation for a parenting class.
you did?
Go back up. Not sure how far you placed, but maybe it says the parent train, but I assume that was parent training programs, but maybe it's not. Maybe it is a like respite care option or something.
But what I'm stunned is number one, how many people are anonymous and she's anonymous? How many people say your child is the problem, send her away? Most of the comments are like that. And so I guess we know the gist of the problem, right? So it's 16-year-old child, in the words of this parent, they are out of control, in my opinion, highly dysregulated. If it's out of control, I think the way we speak about problems and challenges is important too when it comes to parenting. I start with that with my clients because part of the parent education begins with that, how we see things, how we understand things. If my client says to me, my child, my 6-year-old is challenging me, I see that as, oh, I need to help them see it differently. Flip it. I feel challenged and not my child is challenging me. The moment you see that your child is challenging you, you're going to take the more controlling, bullying, violent path. Let's call it violent because it is violence in small form. But the moment you see I am challenged by my child, you take responsibility. You figure it's a different emphasis. So the first thing I do is I help people change their terminology, the way they express
And the
lens, and even the way they say the problem. This one, my child is out of control. In my book, this child is highly dysregulated.
This child is crying out for help.
Yes. So that's number one. Lying, stealing, running away, not going to school. These are surface behaviors that tell us it's the flight response is activated. It's a strong flight response, dysregulated child who is completely just running away, not going to school. It doesn't care because she doesn't feel cared for. She doesn't feel like I belong, doesn't feel like I have my place. Those kinds of feelings.
The lying, stealing, running away are all things that kids do when they feel they have no other option.
Yeah,
too.
Because they raise the volume of the dysregulation, the signs of behaviors to communicate to you what the needs are. My needs are not being met. Hey, meet my need, meet my need. The 16-year-old doesn't have an eloquent language to say my need for autonomy, my need for connection, my need for belonging is not being met, or such and such has happened to me. We don't know the why this child got to this place. And we're not blaming the parent. We don't know what has happened to this child. I think bringing curious mind, an understanding mind, saying what has happened to this child that they are stealing, lying, running away, hitting, and they're out of control. I would love to explore that and have this curious mindset. But I think my first order of things would be having this parent open up in a space where she feels trusted and like in a therapeutic setting where she can express all of those things and feel heard and seen, that she's desperate, that she's helpless, that she doesn't know what to do. She's lost. The parent is also suffering significantly. And so I think that would be the first recommendation. And then helping her see that this is not a behavior problem, although these are behaviors, but let's uncover the why with a curious lens and see what's going on, what has happened to this child that she's in this situation.
Like, how did we get to this
How
point?
we got here. Reading next, she says, she has sent her to therapy. And so again, like this, sending the child to therapy alone, I feel like that is not effective if some of the problem is between the two of you. It's always important to address the family system and maybe go to therapy with your daughter and things like that.
I mean, yeah, I love having kids, especially teenagers, have access to their own therapist who's for them. Many family therapy practices will, if you're going to work with the family system, have a therapist that is for the kid, a therapist that's for the parents, and then a team that's working together to work as the family. Whether that means those two therapists would then be in family sessions together, or there would be a third therapist who is the family's therapist. Working from a system perspective on this, I think would be really important. It's lovely to have the kid have their own space, but that therapist would need to have their own relationship with the child. And I mean, yeah, absolutely. The spirit of sending my child to therapist, that's not it. That's not what we're looking for. Going with her, being involved in the sessions, understanding like, hey, this is not all on you. This is me too. This is us together. We've got to figure this out. And that attitude of like, this 16-year-old is not living her best life. I guarantee she does not like freaking out and screaming at her parents and hitting her parents. She does not feel good after that happens. She does not feel happy about it. If she was really honest with herself, she is not having a great time. And so I think there's a space for leveling with our kids. We can't keep going like this. This is not what it's meant to be like in our family. This is not the interactions that we want to have. And it's on me too. It's not just on you. You know, I know it probably feels to the kids like that it's all their fault, that it's all on them, that they get all the blame. It can be really powerful for a parent to step up and say, like, this is on me too. You know, I know we've made this together, and the only way we can fix it is to do it together.
Maybe if she went to well, this is why I think it's so important for her to see someone for herself, because if this mom came to me or to another person, they would say, well, maybe your child is struggling with mental health. Maybe they have, why don't you, they can make other recommendations, you know? I think starting with the parent is a good option because then you get support and guidance for yourself. Maybe your child can come with you to that same place and get help and support. Maybe you can find therapy for your child. There's different options here. Obviously, we don't know, but a professional will guide this parent properly, even if the child needs to get help apart from everything. This is not solely a parenting issue. This parent can learn how to speak differently. They can improve their communication skills. They can learn parenting strategies. But it's not only that. Maybe this child needs mental health help. Maybe this child needs therapy. Maybe they need to be in therapy together. There's different layers here. There's not one approach. If the mom spoke to a professional, the professional would had a different advice. Even if I don't see the children in my practice, I work with parents. I sometimes say, you know, from your descriptions, you know, it sounds like your child can benefit from maybe seeing an occupational therapist. I haven't seen their child, but I make bold statements like that because I'd rather be wrong than not give advice. I apologize and I say, I don't know your child. I don't want to diagnose your child, but it sounds like things are like red flags are leading me to believe that maybe you need to consult a therapist. Maybe you need to consult an occupational therapist. I have said that in my sessions to parents.
Absolutely.
And they usually call me and they say, thank you. Yeah, he's seeing a occupational therapist and he has this and that. And so, yes, we as professionals, we may not know all the answers, but we can pick up on certain things and make recommendations.
Absolutely.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to work with me? I offer one-on-one parent coaching and have had the privilege of helping many of my podcast listeners over the years. In addition to private coaching, I also provide court-ordered parenting classes and co-parenting counseling available to anyone, anywhere. Visit authenticparenting.com to learn more about how we can work together to achieve your parenting goals. And as a podcast listener, you will receive 10% off all coaching packages.
Anna, do you think that parents when they're going and looking for support. So a parent who's in this situation who feels like they've tried everything, they're at their wits' end, and they're taking this advice, okay, and at the very least, like I can't make my kid go to therapy, I can't make my kid change, but I can at the very least get support for myself. What if they find themselves in a therapy room or in a coaching situation where they're getting that same advice? Because I know, that there's tons of clinical psychologists and other therapists who would give parenting advice where, bring on the consequences, send her to inpatient, like who would give that same advice that I saw in that chat room. I guess I just feel like, how do we know when to listen to the professionals that we seek out and when not? There's this sense of we have to filter it all through our own gut, our own understanding of our kid. And I would hope a professional is actually, a lot of my work is helping a parent hone that inner ability, hone their lens, hone their ability to see their kid clearly, see themselves clearly. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of what our work is.
Mine too. Yeah. That's why we're friends. Yes. Our work is that. I agree with you. And that's a fantastic question. And as someone who loves great questions, usually I don't have answers. It's hard. How do you discern?
Who the right professional is for you. Yeah.
But even if it's the wrong professional, still like getting quote unquote professional help is a lot better than like dabbling on your own and trying different things and hope that something will stick. I'd rather have a professional approach that is quote unquote not aligned, let's say, with our philosophy, nothing.
Yeah. I think too, Anna, that folks, if they are recognizing that maybe their approach to parenting isn't aligned with how I want to do things, you can request that your therapist focus on specific things with you. I don't really want suggestions for consequences. What I want your help with is helping me see my daughter's side of things, see things more clearly. I want you to help me articulate my role in my daughter's life. Do you know what I mean? Like you can ask your therapist for very specific things, or gosh, really all I really want is to have somebody hear and validate my feelings. That's what I need right now. You can ask your therapist for the specific stuff if you are noticing that there's misalignment or if you're constrained by what you have available to you. Because a lot of people have limited access. They have certain folks who are in network and that's all they can do, or they get assigned a therapist within a network that they don't have a lot of choice on.
Yeah. I mean, when I work with a client, I take a whole holistic approach. Like if this mom came to me, and I'm assuming it's a mom, right? From the description, I think it's the mom. If this mom was in my office, I'm thinking, what would I do? What would I help her with? The first thing is usually to sort out the different lanes of the problems, the different buckets, and what's in my territory, where can I send her to somewhere for other help, what help is needed for the daughter. The first couple of sessions is going to be about figuring out
The problem, like really
the
understanding it,
problem and who would be the best help for what kind of problem, sorting the problems, because this is a conglomerate of a problem.
not just one.
It's not one, right? So even by doing that sorting, like dark clothes, it's like sorting your laundry basically. The towels, the sheets, the whites, the darks, the mixed colors. That's how I help my clients sometimes. When people come like this with complex issues, my job, I believe, is to first sort out what is what so that I can see clearly what my role is going to be, how I can be of use or maybe not. Sometimes I say, you know what, I'm not the right service for you. This is the right service. Maybe you can look for this. I've done that multiple times.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can work in conjunction with other services. So, but my first job is to figure out what the actual problem is, or the problem that consists of multiple problems, like sorting of the laundry. I sort it out for myself, then I help the client see the sorted out problem. And together we say, for this, you need this. For this, you need this. For this, maybe you need this. And for this, I have no idea what you need. Like, I don't have all the answers, but I feel like simplifying the problem and offering support for my client and, creating space to be heard and held. That's my way of working. With this mom, that's how I would have worked. And
Absolutely.
that's not going to be, I'm not going to give her advice right away to say, do this, do that at home, don't do this. I may make some,
No, you'd spend a lot of time information gathering.
yes, yeah. I may make maybe a couple of suggestions depending on the case. I may say, no, instead of just like doing this, hold on for a moment, let her have her phone or whatever. We'll come to that. That's not like a primary issue right now. Don't add fuel to the fire. That's creating more issues, right? So my primary focus is let's figure this out and then let's build connection and trust and go from there. That's like the lens that I'm coming from while educating the client about dysregulation, the brain, and like I do a lot of psychoeducation.
Absolutely. I think too the one if I were I would be doing the same, right? Sorting it out, being very curious. Yeah, just
Yeah, I'm curious, how would you approach this? Like if this was your client, like they came to you, what would you do?
I would start by being very curious, very interested in how they see the problem, how they're talking about the problem, gentle nudges to perhaps shift a lens or a way that they're talking about it. What also might be true, So, just engaging a little bit of flexibility, because oftentimes when people come in, they're very polarized, they're very rigid. And so it's introducing a little bit of curiosity and flexibility. I often ask, especially for families where there's a lot of negative interactions, where the primary mode of interaction is negative. I ask lots of questions about like when was the last time you guys had fun together? When was the last time you guys did something without fighting? What do you think we could do to get that to happen? So even way before taking any phones away, there might be a need for a media break. There might be a need for some more limits around those things, like turning off the Wi-Fi and internet at a certain time so that the kid can get sleep if they're not sleeping. There might be a need for some of those things later. First, often we need to start getting some positive interactions rolling, even if that just means taking them to get ice cream or a smoothie or whatever, like they're into boba, whatever, what are the teenagers doing? Like a pink drink or something, just some.
But yeah, what I want to comment on that question itself is so powerful. It will just be, I'm assuming for a lot of parents, this opening just to cry and to soften and
To mourn and grieve. Yeah.
to like reflect and reminisce, to mourn and say, wow, this is how far we've come. And like, I lost so much. And I think that's a very powerful question. Not only like to create positive things, to pick up momentum, but just for them in your office to reflect on that.
It often does create a lot of softening. And then there's an opportunity. They often go to a place of guilt and shame too. And then there's opportunities for teaching them and offering them self-compassion, and helping them see themselves as deserving of compassion. Then there's lots of opportunities there to soften with them, to help them be seen as a person who is struggling, not a bad parent, see their child as a person who's struggling and not a bad kid. Compassion is absolutely something I lean on for my work with parents a lot.
Yeah, me too. I think it's number one tool, the most essential tool, which is hard for a lot of parents, right? A lot of us, it's very hard. But I think it's the most important one. Otherwise, most of those comments, like they were not compassion based. They're like military, police, do this, do that, do, boom, boom, boom. And that's telling of where we are, but people want to give advice as opposed to compassion, right?
But they're fast, they're in their phones, they're on their thumbs. You know what I mean? It's
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you don't know the person. It's anonymous, number one. You don't even know their name. So you give the harshest, best advice that you know. But what I'm curious is, I wish we had access to this anonymous poster. I wish I can give this episode to that poster and say, this is our commentary. You didn't ask for it, but this is like, how does this land? How does this resonate with you? Or the people made all those comments, like, which one resonates with you? Like, did they help you? Did they make you more confused? What did this parent ultimately do based on 57?
I can imagine this parent have what given what they've said, that we tried gentle parenting, tried being their friend, that the idea of a residential program, like their child away, would have been very shocking and surprising and not something that they've necessarily considered and that they would be so scared to do. I can just imagine that those were very extreme kind of reactions. And I think that this parent needed to be met with something much closer to where she currently was. I mean, that's just me. I was just imagining what that would be like to hear.
You're imagining maybe she's like, you know what? I was thinking about that too. Yes, spot on. Now there is recommendations. I'm sending her to Utah.
Yeah. I mean, and I have a couple of friends from grad school who during grad school worked as like case managers for those wilderness programs in Utah, the kind where people come in the middle of the night and essentially kidnap the child, bring them out, fly them out. The parents don't get to say goodbye is intense. And they worked in the summers while they were in grad school, they worked out at those camps. And I found it very interesting. These folks who I really respected, whose work was really interesting. And then they were in these programs that I mean, maybe I'm being a little judgmental. I'm sure that there are good programs. I just can't imagine the trust being built between parent and child in a situation where in the dead of the night, you're taken out of your bed and put on a plane and you don't get to see your parents or talk to your parents. Like that sounds traumatizing to me. I just cannot imagine safety and trust and security being built. Even if it
If
does
it's,
end up being
yeah.
good for the kid, even if the kid does get help that they need, learn something about themselves, like even if it ends up being positive for the child themselves, like it's not an abusive program. And there are plenty that are abusive, you know. I don't know how a relationship recovers from that necessarily.
And that's where I want to say that it is possible to help a family or a parent or a child with a lens of connection and trust, and that this harsh, violent, punitive approach is not the only way. Believe us, I raised my child for 17 years like that. I have others do that. Believe me, it's possible to have connection, to have trust, to have love, to have all those elements and have influence and have your child listen and collaborate. And, it's like, I feel like people think it's only the harsh way works, the punitive approach works. And I'm not sure if we know what the alternative looks like, but I help my clients with the alternative. But it feels like so many people have been raised with the more control-based, fear-based parenting, and they just think it works. It worked for me. Look, I became this person, blah, blah, blah. Forget all the mental health issues or the physical health issues I have. I turned out okay. It's like, no, you didn't turn out okay. Like you have lots of anxiety. Did you
Did
have
turn out
sleeplessness
okay?
or cardiovascular health issues? We know this has significant impact on health and mental health, physical health, health in general. Just because you're alive today doesn't mean you
I
turned out
think
okay. Like I want to say that to people sometimes so badly. What we had, the way we were raised, most of us, I guess, if we were raised that way, it was not right. It was violence against children, and that has to stop. Violence is speaking poorly, judging your kids, calling them, that's
yeah,
violence.
absolutely.
Violence doesn't mean like you're spanking them and hitting them. People also have different understanding of the terms Like when I say to someone, that is violence against children. When someone does this, they're like, no, that's not violence. Violence is when you punch someone and the blood comes out of their mouth. No, that's physical violence. There is other forms of violence that is out there that we normalize and we perpetuate and we think it's okay. It is not. And we need to stop that violence in our homes. It starts in our homes. And it is hard to do. I'm not gonna deny it and only preach, but it's possible.
I think what you're hitting on is what you said before, like in the comments of this question. We only saw parents talking about two approaches, this harsh, authoritarian discipline and, in quotation marks, gentle parenting, and talking about gentle parenting not working. I do think that many people see those as the only two options that are available without really understanding that there's a range in between there, and that there's actually an option where you can have really firm but loving limits and boundaries, where everybody feels respected and safe in the home, where you get to have rules and decisions, but that they are delivered in a way that's loving and caring. And whenever possible, they are collaborative in nature. But I do think that the narrative is that there's either authoritarian discipline that works, or there's what they call gentle parenting. What they mean is permissive parenting, where there's no limits. We're trying to be our friends. Like, as the child, little toddler is hitting you in the face, oh no, don't hit me, but not actually stopping and saying, I will not let you hit me. There is with gentle, loving hands, to be authoritative, good leader.
Yeah, but today's parents moved too far. Even the people who come to see me, most of the time they are the quote unquote the gentle parents, right? Because it resonates with them. And what I see is totally, I'm like, guys, who is the parent here? So one day, this is what happened in my office. This couple comes, they don't have a babysitter, they bring their child with them. And the kid is, let's say, a toddler, 3. So this kid, obviously, the kid is bored. I gave coloring things, and we have toys in the office. But very quickly, the child becomes bored because the parents are not paying attention.
They're probably talking about him too.
And we were trying to talk code language because I'm like, the child will understand.
Absolutely.
This is not okay. Like we were talking about it was hard. And then the child went into the mom's purse and took out, let's say, a lotion. I forgot what it was. And the child wants to squeeze the lotion. He's trying to open, right? Like, I'm thinking to myself, let me see what the parent does here, right?
Oh, yes. What do they do?
That's a lotion. We put it on our face. They're being kind. They're being nice. They're not saying, this is not safe for little children. This is a chemical. We are going to put it away. You can say it in a kind way, or you can take it away from your kid. That's not violent. You can just take it from their hand and say, no, this is not a toy. We don't play with this, and put it back in your purse. There's different ways you can do that, right?
Oh, you're interested in that? I can't let you do that. That would make a big mess in Dr. Anna's office.
And maybe we can smell it, but no, this is not a toy. There aren't only 2 options here. That's to your point. And they didn't say anything. They were trying to be so nice. They were and I just had to stop them. I said, guys, enough. Just take the thing away and tell the child, give them a clear boundary. This is not a toy. And they were so uncomfortable. They're like, well, but we don't do that at home. Well,
that might be the problem.
But exactly, you're too soft, not present. Your child is going to be lost without those guidelines and boundaries. And so I feel like today's parents don't want to be the harsh. Seems like they're in a different camp. But most people I see in my work is I'm trying to help them to be a little more authoritative, bring a little bit of more leadership and have a voice in parenting. Don't be afraid. You're the parent. You need to guide your child. What if they squeeze and make a mess in my office? What if they eat? What if they put their hands, then they rub their eyes? That can go wrong. So that's just one example how
I think too that there's this piece of it where I don't think they're unrelated, right? So if this person in this example has been trying the gentle parenting thing, my guess is they've been permissive with this child the child's whole life. And now all of a sudden, like we're getting they're bigger, the pushback is bigger, the boundary seeking and testing is bigger. And when we have these extremes, then we realize like, okay, shoot, we've been too gentle, we've been too permissive. And now we're going to ratchet it down. We're going to respond with the big control. And you know what I mean? I think that they're not unrelated. And I do think parents go from those extremes that I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to quash their spirit. I don't want to, stifle them. I want to, and then all of a sudden we lose our cool. And that's when we're yelling and doing stuff that is also not aligned. I do think that finding that middle ground, finding that place of authoritative parenting, good leadership, clear boundaries, guidance prevents us from going to either extreme.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's a valid point. And people sort of do that type of parenting in the beginning, like when they're little toddlers or young children. And then maybe that works a little bit. But when they hit the teenage years, it backfires. And it just like, wow. Then they go to the other extreme, right? Those people, quote unquote, the gentle parents, when the kids were young, it sort of worked, maybe. But when they hit the teenage years, it backfires because it's basically anarchy. There is no boundaries for the child, and they are lost and they push back and they want to bump up against some kind of a wall to feel that safety and that connection.
And they have to get bigger and bigger in order to find the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it is. And then the parent then raises, then reigns the kid, wants to control, but it's not control that you need to increase in teenage years. You need to give them more autonomy. You need to be more in control and in not earlier, not in a negative sense of the word control, but in leadership, in control type, authoritarian, not authoritative, not authoritarian, so that in teenage years it would be a lot easier. But I think it's reversed in our culture,
I
unfortunately.
think so too.
And that's why people have issues later and they question their whole parenting, their whole philosophy, the way they did it. They have remorse. And the kids, quote unquote, didn't turn out okay the way they wanted.
And then they say gentle parenting doesn't work because you weren't doing it anyway. And the other thing too, Anna, that is interesting to think about is that these are skills you have to develop as a parent, right? How to be collaborative, how to set a boundary that's firm but loving, all of those things. Why not practice it with little kids when the stakes are low? With a 2-year-old who is naturally exploring the world, helping them understand when it's safe to do so, with objects that are safe, like, okay, so you figured out throwing is amazing. You're in a trajectory schema. That's wonderful. Let's go find all the things that are safe to throw and where it's safe to throw them. No, I cannot let you throw your truck. Let's go find a ball, like those boundaries versus learning those skills as the parent when they're 16 and they've got car keys and they've got a phone and they're out the door before you can do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's build these skills when they're young.
I do. So true. Oh my gosh. I think maybe we should end on that because that's such a fantastic point. True. I completely agree. And it would be so much easier in the teenage years. And a lot of people were like, the moment they hear you have a teenager, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. It's like, no, why are you sorry? Like,
I have a new teen, and, my kids have been wonderful teachers my whole journey as a parent, wonderful at making me practice good skills, but I'm enjoying those parts of it where they are looking for more autonomy. They're looking for more self-efficacy. They're looking for, pouring into peer relationships. This is all developmentally appropriate what they're doing. But we have that basis of I'm here to keep you safe. I'm here to guide you. There will be a time where I step more and more back and let you shine. And, that's all appropriate.
and I'll say this and we'll conclude. I interviewed the author of Mother Hunger, that book. I forgot her name at the moment. She was so lovely. In her book, she talks about what parents need to give their children, basically three things. And I've taken that away and I share with all of my clients. I use that framework: nurturance, guidance, and protection. It just explains it so well, the three main buckets that we need to provide for our kids. When they're young, you nurture and care, and throughout their life, as they get older, there is more guidance. Like you don't guide a newborn, but protection always is there. And she asks a question in her book, like, what did you get from your parents? Or rather, what didn't you get? Maybe you got a lot of protection, quote unquote, but not a whole lot of guidance or nurturance. And it's so,
Interesting. I like that. Kelly McDaniel, is that Kelly McDaniel? Yeah, I haven't read that book out. Looks good.
it's a really powerful book. Even when I was interviewing her, she said to me, literally, can you handle this topic? The book is very deep and the conversation was phenomenal. And yeah, definitely highly recommend.
Cool.
And I,
Is that episode of yours
a
out?
long time ago, yeah, a couple of years ago, it's a fantastic conversation and she's great. And that book is phenomenal. It resonates with a lot of people with the shocking title, Mother Hunger.
Interesting.
With that, I really want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. We have to do this at least once a month. Like I am committing to, do.
I love getting to talk to you. You know, our jobs can be pretty lonely, Anna. It's so nice to have a colleague. Thank you for inviting
I
me.
know, thank you, but I promise we will do it more frequently, even if we don't have a topic or answering people's questions, or we can always talk about something. And I love like sharing ideas with you, and you always make me think differently. And your compassion is always, it's like, wow, this is great. So thank you, Laura. I love you and good luck with raising a teenager. I'm almost like done with the difficult parts of the teenage
You're
years.
almost out. Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, thanks, Anna, for having me.
That concludes today's conversation, my dear listener, and I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Be sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes, and take a moment to leave a rating and review. It really helps others find the show. I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways. Join the conversation in the Authentic Parenting Facebook group or visit the contact page at authenticparenting.com/contact to get in touch. Authentic Parenting is an ad-free show, and your donations is what makes this podcast possible. Support the show by visiting authenticparenting.com/support or becoming a patron at patreon.com. Your contributions make it possible for me to continue bringing you weekly episodes. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seawold. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was edited and produced by Aminur. If you need expert support to bring your dream podcast to life, from editing to full production, Aminur can help make it happen. You'll find his link in the show notes.